Okay, here we are. Welcome back, everybody who's been following along with the Legacymakers podcast. I know it's been maybe a little bit. We've kind of been out of commission on the podcasting for a while, but we are back, and we're just so excited that you are here to listen and just kind of join in this conversation. This would be what I would consider season 2. And the last season, we had 4 dads on the podcast. And we've been kind of switching it up, kind of changing some plans. And we wanted to come in with a new approach to the podcast and really just provide some more real, honest, kind of in the works conversations around family and marriage and unity and living on purpose and building this legacy that we're proud of. And so today we have Natalie and Aaron and my beautiful wife, Megan. And we have a lot in store for the year as far as content goes and all this stuff that we want to share with you guys and talk about and converse about. And, in the comments and wherever you're listening to this show, I invite you to just ask questions, make replies, and even share the episode. And rate it and review it. We want to hear your feedback. And it helps get the show out and the message of living on purpose to more families. Amen. But our goal overall is we just want to help encourage you and encourage wherever you're at as a family, as a couple, in the journey of building a legacy, because ultimately we will all build a legacy. We will all leave a legacy. And it's going to be good or it's going to be bad. It's one of 2 options. And, ideally listening to this is going to help all of us build a legacy that we are proud of. Amen. And so we're so happy that we're back. We're excited. It's going to be good.
So excited.
And we are stoked. It's going to be good.
Yes. Come on.
I want to just really quick introduce Aaron and Natalie, and I want to hear, what kind of brought you guys into the Legacymakers arena or atmosphere. And if you don't mind, just introduce yourself. Your where you're from, kids, background. Just really quick, go into it if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So I'll introduce us.
Yes,
excuse me. And then maybe you can tell a little bit about how we kind of jumped into Legacymakers. So, Natalie and I met in Temecula, Marietta area. Riverside County, and then...
You're getting the long story, folks.
I guess so.
Oh, yeah.
We got married when we were really young. Ooh, I'm going to speed this up. And we moved to Orange County in about 2015, was it? 2015. And I was going to law school at Whittier Law School in Costa Mesa. Natalie was commuting to Los Angeles to go to UCLA to finish her bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Go Bruins.
And so we were... full-blown, full-time students at that time, living on a super tight budget.
A $0 budget.
But I finished law school, passed the bar a couple of years later, and then...
That's incredible.
Natalie, of course, graduated from UCLA. Mm-hmm. We pressed into our careers a little bit, and then had our son, Grant, who's now 4, in about 2019. And then 2 years later, Jade, our daughter, in 2021.
Sweet baby Jade.
Sweet baby Jade. Thank you for
Praise God for Jade.
Yes.
And now we're doing life in Rancho Santa Margarita.
Yep.
So you guys met in Whittier. I thought you met at Bethel.
No, we did not. No, we did not. We met through some mutual friends back home. But we both went to... Bethel Ministry School.
But at different times.
Right.
At different times.
Like you weren't together yet?
No.
No. I was home after my first year at Bethel. We met on my summer break. and started dating when I went to my second year. And then when I came home, I was super excited to be with Natalie because we had been doing long distance relationship for quite some time. And she said, you know what?
Dang.
I'm going to Bethel.
I said,
wow.
Hey, okay, see you later. So that was that. We did some more long distance.
Wait, so how long total long distance?
So you were dating like over 4 years, long distance.
You're making us go into the tundras of our memory, guys.
Wow.
After
Hold on.
kids,
This is
there's
good,
like a before kids and an after kids, and this is like, BK.
Right.
Oh gosh,
yes.
we did long distance at least 2 years.
A year and a half to 2 years?
2.5 years.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
while I was
yeah.
at Bethel for 2 years.
Right. So when you finished your second year, I think the conversation I remember we had was, this is going really well. We've mastered the long distance relationship.
Yes.
So many said we couldn't do it. We did it.
Yeah.
When you get home, we'll give ourselves 6 months. And if we still like each other, we still love each other, then we'll get married.
Let's get
And that's what
married.
happens.
Yeah. We thought either we're gonna
Wow.
split
So
up
here we
right
are.
away or
the rest is history.
get married.
All right, so this is actually a key here, and for everybody who's listening, as you can tell by listening to Aaron, very educated folk here. Very educated. This is why we brought them in. Highly educated, highly trained,
It's all a wash.
family.
We have Jesus.
It's a big deal. And long distance dating is no joke.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And so kudos to you guys
Yeah.
for.
We got a couple degrees in long distance.
Yes, we
dating.
do.
There you go.
If you're listening and you're in a long distance relationship and you need help, reach out.
Yeah.
So good.
Happy to help.
We might
Hey,
be
let's
able
go.
to help.
Let's
Yes,
go.
and then we came across Legacy Makers. It's such a cool God story. I
Yeah.
remember we were, I've heard about you guys through some mutual friends, and I think it was like late one night. It was like a Holy Spirit inspired Instagram moment. But I'm flipping through and I saw a fundraiser breakfast that you guys were holding, and I don't know what it was, but I just felt like God was saying, you've got to get to this fundraiser.
Whoa.
And so I remember showing it to Aaron and being like, hey, we got to go to this thing. I think Grant was only a couple, I don't know, maybe a year or so
Maybe
old, but
a
like
year.
baby stage still. And we saw the thing. We signed up for the fundraiser, and then we came. And I remember going up to you. I think it was you, Ben. It was just like, hi, I'm Natalie, and I just love family and legacy. And I'm so awkward. What do I say? And then the rest is history. Like
Yeah,
we slowly
so
started building
crazy.
a relationship after that. And
Wow.
it felt like such a divine thing because I don't go to fundraisers. We don't normally,
Wow.
especially with a newborn, it's like you just stay at home in
No.
your jammies all day, right?
Yeah.
And try to survive.
Amen.
But it felt like a God thing. And since then, we've just felt so much grace on the ministry and what you guys are doing, and have
Wow.
wanted to partner however we can.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So cool.
Well, thank you guys for sharing that and just introducing yourself.
Yeah.
So thankful that you guys are.
Thanks for having us.
You're here and you're in on this with Legacymakers, and overall the vision. The vision. I feel like you guys have.
Yeah.
You guys have it, and it's in you, and it's just an honor. And we're so thankful. Megan and I have been kind of running solo for I don't know how long, 3 years or so. And it's always been a dream of ours to have people to run with and do life and ministry with.
Yeah.
And so this is just, however long or who knows, it's like, this is just such a gift and, for this season and whatnot. So just so thankful that you guys are here and a part of this with us and believe in this vision that Legacymakers has to see family restored. The other thing I was curious too, though, is as you guys have kind of, affiliated yourselves now with Legacymakers and kind of coming into the fold of things. You guys recently made kind of a life decision, kind of a big life transition. I'm just curious. Would you please just kind of tell us like just a little bit of the story and what the decision was and kind of where you see yourselves maybe moving into?
Yes, we have made a big life change. We're not pregnant again, but it feels like that. We actually are. It feels like spiritually, like there's a pregnancy happening.
That's a good
But we have been, so Aaron was an attorney for the last, I don't know how many years, 4 or 5 years. I've gone through, I've had amazing, incredible jobs over my last, 8 to 10 years or so. But I've been working for incredible gentlemen, John Tyson and Jefferson Bethke, kind of running all the operations for their ministries called Primal Path and Forming Men. If you don't know about them, please, maybe we'll link it in the show notes. I don't know if we have show notes, but it's an incredible thing that they're doing to help transform men and build father and son discipleship programs and
so good.
Making boys into men. It's been so phenomenal and so fun to do operations. It's like... nobody likes to do emails, but when you do emails that help dads and sons, it's yes, I'll do this email.
It's worth it.
But we've been serving for a long time. We have a strong belief in serving. And if we don't have a vision of our own, like the desire is, hey, who can we find around us that we can serve and pour into them? And so it's been a great season of serving, and we're still in that same boat. However, over the last, I don't know, what was it? Last February, we were at a men's conference for forming men in Florida. And the two of us were alone. Like, my sister watched the kids. We got to like fly to Florida together. It was like a mini date.
So cool.
Honeymoon part 2, you know, without the kids. It was incredible. But we're there, and I am like the only woman in the room doing operations and like admin stuff. So I'm hiding in the back of the room during this Forming Men conference. And I'm like worshiping, trying to not be any kind of a distraction. And I all of a sudden get this incredible vision from God about a ministry he'd laid on my heart. And I thought to myself, like, I don't even know what I thought. I feel like I felt like God was like right in front of me saying, this is what I want you to do. And I'll share the details in a minute. But I then like, you know, felt like all the people in the Bible who have seen angels, you know, they're like faces glowing, like what is happening? So I go into the room where Aaron is, and I'm like, honey, I feel like I just saw the face of God.
Whoa.
And I remember Aaron looking at me just like, this feels so right and so good. So long story short, we have been in a season of stewarding that dream, because so many times God gives you like visions or dreams of what he wants you to do, and the timing just might not be it. And so there's usually this like space in between receiving the dream and like walking it out, where you're like, how do I steward this in this moment? And so I would say for like, I don't know, what was it, 8 to 10 months or so, we just stewarded the dream by praying about it, praying into it, wondering like, okay, God, when? If not now, like, cool. It's not even my dream, it's your dream, you know? Like, at the time, there was no margin in our schedules to work toward this dream, because Aaron had been working full time.
Wait, so this was 8 to 10 months
Yes,
ago?
last year. Yeah, so last year from February to December, whatever that is. Y'all do the math.
Oh, really?
Yes, February till December, where I've just been like holding this dream, like, okay, Lord, when? Now? Not now? Like trying to get a feel for it.
Right. And some of that, I'll admit, sorry to interrupt, but for me, being in a place where I was providing for our family, in hindsight, I was dragging my feet, because I had felt in my heart and in my spirit that this was more important than what I was doing.
Oh, wow.
And that.
Wait, how did you realize? Like, what led you to realize that?
That's a good.
That's a major.
That's a good question. That's a good question, and I probably couldn't tell you the moment I felt that, but looking back, it was over the course of several weeks, maybe months, where I felt like, I think I need to lay everything down and let Natalie pursue this.
Whoa!
And I wrestled with that for a long time.
Oh yeah, I can.
And initially, I dismissed it.
Wow.
Completely, because it felt completely adverse to my responsibility as a man and a husband and a father to provide for my family. And on top of that, there were a lot of people counting on me.
Yeah.
I had worked hard for this degree and to pass the bar and to get a job as an attorney, and all of those things take time and hard work.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to let anybody down. And so I dragged my feet for a while, but then Natalie and I started having some conversations about what that might look like. And I remember one night in particular, I said, hey, what would it look like if I just dropped what I was doing?
Yeah.
If I just quit my job?
Guys,
I could still have my license, and if things didn't go as planned, I could always jump back in. But what if I quit and you ran with this dream and vision?
Yeah, so what happened after that? Like, what was the...
I was like, really? And then he dragged his feet a little bit longer.
It's kind of like the light bulb went off, honestly. Like, this feels right. But when I released that, when I mentioned that, I felt those same anxieties come up in me again. Like, I don't know if I should be doing this. Like, this maybe feels irresponsible of me. And so I went back inside my head and I overthought it. And it took probably about another month or so for us to really recognize, like, this has to happen. You know, when the Lord puts a dream or a vision on your heart, and I'm sure that you two can attest to this, like, you can take your time processing through it, praying about it, thinking through it, but eventually, if it's from Him, like... you're going to need to make a decision at some point, right? Like you feel it on your heart pressing on you every day. Like sometimes you can't even sleep. You're like, I need to make a decision. I need to tell him yes, or I need to tell him no.
Wow.
Right. And we weren't going to say no.
Wow.
I mean, no, that's just not us.
Well, wasn't there like a tipping point? Because you guys, I remember we were kind of having a conversation about this a while ago, but like the tipping point of like kind of this points. Like I think you had said that God told you that He was going to like release.
Oh my gosh,
Aaron,
you guys! How much do we want to get into this?
No, I really think this is a major point of the story.
So.
It is.
You guys, we can't do life without God's voice. Like, you just can't. You've got the Word of God, and it is absolute gold, and you better be in it all the time as much as you can, because it builds you and encourages you. But you also need the Word of God spoken to you, that still small voice in your heart that tells you, like, this is the way, walk in it, let me lead you here. So anyways, we had just gotten into, I don't know, would you call it a fight? It felt like a fight where we were like, there was a lot on the line. My dream was on the line. In my opinion, obedience to God was on the line. Like, am I going to do what He said to do? Or are we just going to, drag feet and actually not live according to our values? And so my anxiety was like, oh, my dream's on the line, and then there's that wrestle of, okay, but I surrender it to you, God, and it's your dream in the first place. And, if you want this to happen, do something with Aaron, And then Aaron was like, there's this manly thing in me that, like, if I quit my job, like, I feel like it's this deep core thing in a man that's like, I need to provide for my family. And and yet it's this acknowledgement of, like, God's the actual real provider in the home. And do we actually believe that? And so we had gotten in this, long conversation about it. Our hearts were a bit raw. I'm in the bathroom getting washed up for bed, and I think, Aaron, you're laying in bed already, and I heard the Lord say, hey, if you give a certain amount of money to this one ministry, I will break something off of Aaron. I'm like, cool, done, boom, pull up the phone. Didn't even tell Aaron,
No problem.
Even if this isn't you, God, I love this ministry. Like, I'm going to give the money.
Love.
I think I rolled over in bed. I was like, I just gave such and such, this much. And he's like, cool,
I was half asleep.
Totally. Yeah. So that very week, no joke, I want to say 2 or 3 days later, we're sitting. One of the biggest challenges that we were up against was Aaron didn't want to disappoint his dad.
Yeah,
and we're going there, right? Aaron didn't want to disappoint his father, who had spent so much of his money paying off some of our loans, supporting us all of our, 20s and educational background time. Like, he supported us so well, and his dad is like a rock in our family. And so Aaron did not want to disappoint. And there was this thing in him, and I don't want to speak for you, so interrupt at any time, but there was this thing in him that thought, if I quit, will he be disappointed? Or like, will he feel like it's dishonoring, disrespectful, whatever the lies were that Aaron was kind of processing. But it's a legitimate, question.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting at dinner 2 or 3 days later after I gave this money to this ministry, and somehow we get in this conversation with your dad. Do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, sure. Okay. We're just talking about, and I'll be quick, but we were talking to him about my grandpa, who's no longer alive. But I loved him and respected him dearly. Yeah. And I know my dad did as well. And so Natalie asked my dad a really great question about him. What are a few things that you take away from his life? And he sat there for a moment.
What legacy did he pass on? Yeah.
He sat there for a moment, and he didn't answer right away. And then he said, you know what? I'll tell you what I wish I would have taken away. And we're like, that's great.
Wow.
And he said, I wish I would have taken more risks.
Wow.
Because your grandpa was a huge risk taker.
You're like, no, he didn't.
And he was willing he was willing to push all of his chips to the center of the table.
Oh my gosh, you guys.
And go all in.
Yeah.
And when my dad said that, I kid you not, at the table, I just felt that pressure of not wanting to disappoint him just fall off my shoulders.
Wow.
And I felt so free in that moment. And I could not but thank him for that, because I knew I couldn't have done that on my own.
Dang.
And honestly, after that, I told him shortly after that, maybe a day or two or so, and he took it better than I thought. His initial reaction was exactly what I thought it was going to be. I won't tell you what he said because this is a family podcast. But once he processed through that, he accepted it, and he was happy for us, and he's been that way ever since. So really cool story, just about leaning into him and the wrestle of that, Natalie was saying that thing in me of, wanting to provide for the family, and then the Lord telling me, lay it all down.
Wow.
And telling me, do you trust me enough to provide for your family?
Whoa.
Do you trust me enough in that role?
Wow.
Amen.
And of course, I trust him enough to do that for us. So,
so all that to say, like, the real life right now looks like Aaron quit his job.
Yeah.
Woo. Wow.
As an attorney.
Just take the wheel.
Which, it's so
it.
good. Who does that? I love it so much. Like, lay it all down. He quit his job. He is now home full time with the baby.
Come on.
And I am now in the garage, in my little garage cave, woman cave, whatever you want to call it.
Super cave.
I am working on creating content to help women who've had abortions process through like the pain and the trauma. And the hope is to see there's so much like heaviness over abortion. That's my story. When I was 15, ended up getting pregnant. Had an abortion at 16, like a couple days after my birthday. Horrible stories. Kept it in secrecy, silent for so many years, and then have been, over the last 15 years, walked through just a beautiful healing process. Dang. And I've been just researching and like seeing what the literature out there right now is on post-abortive healing, and there's just a lot of heaviness. There's so much, just like it just feels heavy and. It's like a heavy topic, and it's a tender one, and it's super traumatic, but I want to come at it from an angle of hope and like full-on redemption and restoration and fullness. Like, what would it look like for women who have gone through that to be able to share without grief or shame or trauma attached to it. So, and that's what Jesus does really well. So I am in the garage 4 days a week writing content and then running upstairs to get a cup of tea, give the kids a kiss, and then like run back down to write some more. And then on the side, I'm also doing all the operations for Primal Path and Forming Men still. But it is exciting. We're hoping in the next
But it's not just tea. I mean, Aaron's told me.
Yeah.
He's like, you're coming up. He's like, are you okay? Everything okay?
My favorite is when like Grant will run down with like a little bag of goodies and be like, here, Mom. And he'll like, we leave the garage cracked. So Grant like crawls in there, brings me my goodies, and then crawls back out and goes back
on my
up.
one
it's
work
so
day,
fun.
if I come in, he's like, Beck, get out of here. Disrupt everything.
It's so fun.
Pretty much.
We're still in the like newlywed phase of it all. Who knows where it'll lead?
Right.
It's so exciting, you guys. We feel so alive, like we're just doing what God created us to do. And
I'm super proud of Natalie. You've just jumped in head first, and I've seen some of the content, and let me tell you, it is really, really good. So
come on.
So can people find you yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
Still secret. Not
I have
ready.
an Instagram, but that's it. I know. I don't know my tactics for getting it out there. That was the Lord's promise. He will bring me the women. I don't want to go search for them.
Yeah.
The website.
So good, guys.
Yes, it will come to be continued.
Wow. Thank you guys for sharing. I'm just curious too, because this is like, you guys have been on this adventure for a year now or so. Really, since you guys had the dream, had the idea, and God's been nudging you along. But also, it's like, okay, here you are now, and how do you? And I think it just is a great lead into like, you guys have this these ideas in your mind for the life that you want for your family. And I even think for us too, like when we kind of took that leap of faith and took that step, it was like, what was leading us, and even for you now, like what is going to lead you as a family to, I guess, maintain vision and maintain purpose and maintain, the title of this show is Staying on Mission as a Family, but like to even stay on mission, because I feel like in the season of transition, it's like, it's kind of chaotic, and it's kind of like
it is.
Your brain's swirling. You've got a lot of worries, and you're anxious about potential providence and provisions, and how are we going to do this in the midst of raising a family and trying to have a good marriage and trying to have be a good parent. So, I think this is kind of open for all of us, but how do we, if because we all go through transitions, we all, life changes.
Absolutely.
And no matter where you are, whether it is a job, whether it is you get laid off, or whether it is you have a new kid or you have to move, and it's like, we got all these different things going on.
Yep.
How do you stay focused within that?
Right.
And beyond that?
It's a great question.
Yeah. I would say, for Natalie and I, for our transition, we obviously, knowing it was coming, we sat down and started to plan accordingly. And because we knew the transition would probably be a little clunky.
It was so clunky, guys.
I was jumping into a brand new role.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, spending time with the kids was basically spending time with them on the weekends.
Yeah.
And
that's different.
And that also meant that I was coming off of an extremely long week, and I was very tired, and it was never what I wanted it to be. And so I knew, wow, I'm going to need to give myself a lot of grace, because even though I'm with them Saturday and Sunday, spending 5 days with them and caring for them in that fashion.
Making 3 meals a day plus how many snacks.
Right. Was going to be a completely different lifestyle for me. So we talked a lot about that. And
what did that look like? How did you guys
met strategically about that?
Interesting.
And with our mission in mind.
Okay.
And so one of the things we talked a lot about was, how do we simplify our lives?
Yes.
Oh.
We need to create more margin during this time.
Whoa.
Taking on more to-dos and getting busier is not what we need right now.
I feel like we didn't really do that well. we never asked that question.
Well.
How do we simplify?
Well, we have 2 kids, a little different.
That's good. Good job.
And a part of that is knowing how we operate personally, and as a team, as a married couple. When we're too busy, when we have too much going on, we're not as connected. We're not. We're not as strategic about how we're running our family.
Okay, so then what was the guiding kind of principles that you feel like you landed on? Like you said, you wanted to have that connect and maintain this more time with each other and being together. Like, I guess what were the focuses that you clarified that were really important?
Yeah. So we roughly painted a picture of what our weeks are going to look like moving forward, based on our values and our mission, of course. And then the one thing we talked about was, we've got to be meeting regularly to make sure we're on track, and also to make adjustments if we need it, because again, we're not really sure how this is going to look. And although what we just painted in front of us looks good on paper, it just may not work practically.
Yeah.
I may feel like,
Exactly.
wow, 5 days is a lot. I need a break in between. Of some amount of time to reset.
Nice.
And we didn't know quite when that would fall. So one of those things was, okay, we're going to meet at the end of each week, and we're going to reflect on the week, the previous week, and we're going to talk about what worked and what didn't work, and then we're going to make some slight adjustments. Very, very
slight is the key word.
Yeah. Slight adjustments.
No.
So not major. You're saying
oh
not
my
major
gosh,
adjustments.
so slight, you guys. You want to set yourself up for wins, right? And so we didn't want to make drastic changes, because it's
then you'll
the more
learning again.
Yeah. The more drastic changes you make, it's like, oh my gosh, well, what do I need to adjust now? And did that where I'm exhausted trying to keep up, and you want to set yourself up for success. And so it would be like, well, what's one little pain point we experienced this week, and how can we tweak something? And this we've learned from, mentors and friends of ours, so we take no credit at all, but it's like, what's that one pain point this week, and how do we adjust it? And so we're living this constant tweaking and little minor adjustments throughout our weeks to try to make them better. And the idea is, the more if you make 52 adjustments and tweaks a year, because you meet once a week, your life should look so different at the end of the year, because you've been constantly tweaking and adjusting. Right. And when there's just small tweaks, it's a lot easier to keep up with it.
Can you give us an example? I'm having a hard time understanding the small tweaks.
Yeah. So one tweak could be, and this is what we're working on now. You can jump in. Laundry, like getting laundry done at a certain time of day, and how are we going to make it work so that laundry doesn't, I mean, my issue is laundry would stay in the dryer for 2 days, and then you're like, oh, it's all wrinkled, let me throw it back in the wash and get it going again. Yep. And so, it's like a little tweak of okay, hon, how can we make sure the laundry gets done and it gets done that one day, so we're not lingering and putting it away 10 days later, kind of a thing. And so it's okay, he needs extra time, or I need extra time. It's so silly, but this is a pain point to him and I, because we're in a tiny house, 850 square foot house. And the minute Aaron's so good at folding laundry and he puts it on the bed, but then the kids jump on the bed and the laundry goes everywhere. And so we're doing the same thing 50 times a week to try to get the laundry put away. So, little things like that. That's okay, it's a pain point when the kids jump on the bed and, jack up the laundry. How do we fix this? Cool. I'm going to take the kids away. One of us can finish the laundry, so something simple like that. That's laundry is really not that big of a deal, but these little tweaks that you make throughout the week to help. Yeah. Did you have another thing in mind?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how you recently mentioned, I don't want to work a long day, then come upstairs and have to prep dinner. Can you step in a couple of times a week? Maybe it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a Tuesday, Thursday schedule where you take on the meal. Mm-hmm. And that took some pressure off of you because when I was working full time, I remember mentioning to you, hey, I've been at the office all day. I'd really like to spend time with the kids when I come home. Mm-hmm. And when you said that to me, I thought, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
I've been there.
I can do that. And so we've been working on that. And that's just a small tweak that's really helped everyone in the family. Yeah.
Well, what do you? I mean, those are great. I'm just curious too. What do you guys think are some of the most common reasons families and even for us, how do we tend to find ourselves kind of drifting away from what we set out to do as a family? I mean, especially in the season of transition, it's obviously there's going to be a lot that's going to detour us from that. And what do you feel like? I guess maybe the better question is what is the little things that might just kind of derail us, from the course?
Well, I think a key is you first have to know your course, right? You first have to know your mission in order to stay on mission. I think that's the number one thing is if people don't know what's really most important as a family in any season of transition, we're always going to be flustered and not know what's important, and you're only focused on the thing right in front of you. And then even I would agree that simplifying in seasons of transition or when we notice ourselves drifting, thinking about those things that are really the most important, even within our mission or within our values. Maybe in a season, there's really only one value that you are actively able to focus on and live out.
Yes.
And that's just what it is for the season. Absolutely. And that's okay.
That's
absolutely.
Okay.
But allowing yourself the permission to not focus on everything that's important 100%. To your family, but just on one thing that you have designated as this is important for our family.
Yes.
I think that's key.
It's funny. I was just thinking about this. I love the idea of, just setting the cruise control. I mean, it's this whole concept of drift. It's almost like I love to drift. I love to just let life carry and not have to worry. Not have to think about where I'm going.
It must be nice, Ben.
Yeah, I know.
I'm the opposite. Grab it by the.
I just set the cruise. Yeah. Sit back, relax.
Yeah.
And. I think because it's easy, it's I just want to sit back and relax. I don't want to have to I don't want to have to put in all this effort and, have these meetings every week and do all these, the hard conversations and the fine tune adjustments. And, but it's you set that cruise control and at the same time, your alignment isn't quite perfect on the front two wheels of the car.
Right. That's right.
And again, you start to kind of just veer.
Yep.
Slowly, and then you start hitting
and then you look up about a month or two from then, right?
Yeah,
and you realize, wow, we're way off track.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
We haven't touched our values.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about our mission.
Yep.
We're not doing what we want to do.
Yeah.
We're overbooked. We're overscheduled.
Do we ever talk to each other anymore?
Right? We're filling our lives with things that don't bring us life or him.
Yes.
And that's a problem. And so, when Natalie and I were talking about this episode and drifting, we both mentioned the feeling of fatigue or feeling overscheduled or overpacked.
Yeah.
And again, I'm coming back to knowing when to simplify your life. And I love what Meg said about maybe in a certain season when things feel very busy, you hone in on one value and you make that the center of what you're doing.
Yeah.
A good example for Natalie and I is a couple of months ago, one of our values is belonging, and that means a lot of things to us. But one in particular is we spend time as a family. We focus on each other. And so something we really honed in was we have got to make sure that we are sitting down often together as a family and having dinner. But most importantly, Friday nights is a big one for us. We have a family meal. Maybe it's with candles only, and we just focus on each other. We belong to each other that night. And then Saturday is a big, Sabbath day for us. And that's how we kick that off. But that is something that we have focused on in the past.
Yeah, that's good.
Where else have you guys find yourselves drifting? Would you say? Like noticing like you're saying it, right? Like the whole idea of like you got too much going on, you got too many things.
Isolation.
To isolation.
I think it's a big one.
Yeah.
I do. You got to have some accountability. You got to make sure that you're connecting with other families who are pursuing their mission and their values. There's something about getting out of the comfort of, I'll say isolation, but sometimes it can feel good just to like not go out a whole lot. Or you've got to push back on that sometimes. And I'm not saying it's not okay to have those seasons where you're like, we're focusing on us right now because we need it. We're coming out of a rough season or a rough time or something unexpected.
Just
happened.
had a baby.
We really need to lean on each other, right? That's okay. But in other times, Natalie and I have noticed like we've got to reach out to friends. We've got to connect.
How do we know when, like you said earlier, 2-3 months down the road, it's like, okay, we're a little bit off course here. How does that indicator light, if we're just, going with the analogy of like being in the car, sitting in the cruise control, the indicator lights on the dash, what's the indicator usually feel like, or like, what's the sound, in life, in your family, of the fact that, okay, you're off track. As a family, we're off course. We are, we're not connected. We're not, what is that?
Yeah.
What are like some of the warning signs, I guess, of that? I'm just curious what you.
I would agree with what Aaron said. Like that feeling of overwhelm is like a sure sign that you have too much going on. That is not like what is most important to you.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Because if you're doing what's most important, there's going to be this sense of satisfaction and contentment, even if it's a lot, right? Like raising a family is a lot.
Yeah.
You're always going to have a lot going on. But when you have a lot going on that is in line with what your mission is as a family, then it just feels right still. Yeah. Even though it's a lot and you feel like you can manage it still. Yeah. It's not so stressful and overwhelming. Yeah. So I think that drift, at least that's what I experience.
How have you, Meg, like found yourself realizing the overwhelm sensation, and then like what have you had to like do to kind of recenter yourself, or maybe move back on track?
I mean, I do think eliminating things, like having those conversations where we talk about, okay, what are we actually committed to right now, and what should we stay committed to, and what should we not, what should we let go of, being able to say no to those things that you need to say no to. Yeah.
Which is hard
for me.
It's hard for us.
For us, especially me.
for the sake of not wanting to disappoint, or
I feel like for me it's more like not wanting to miss out on something because it's usually something I enjoy. I said yes for a reason, right?
There's a lot of fun to be had.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I feel like that's more so for me.
Yeah.
And
we like our fun.
Yeah.
It's in your mission.
Gotta play, gotta have fun.
Exactly. So we're on mission when we're having fun.
Exactly. This is part of it. We can't say
so
no.
much fun. It's so overwhelming how much fun we're having.
Natalie and I have noticed in the past that for us as a family, things start to speed up, and that's a good indicator for us. Like when it feels like, I'll use the word control, but when it feels like life is just happening so fast. There's so much going on in our schedule, and it feels like the family car we're in is increasing in speed, and it's exciting. But then when you take a moment to reflect on what you're doing, you're like, wow, this is all just moving way too fast. We haven't touched this value in a long time, and it feels like we're pulling away too quickly. Would that make sense to you?
Not to like pivot entirely. I completely agree. I think almost like a deeper indicator should be your emotions. I think you should. I think when you're in tune with your emotions and how you're feeling, and not to get into therapy, which I highly recommend because it's so good, but I think when you're in tune with your emotions, how you're feeling, you are aware in your heart if you're drifting or not. I think there's that inner knowing of like, I'm just, and not condemnation in the sense of like, I'm bad, shame on me, but like, I could be doing better. I could be living more full. I think the danger can get to where you start to feel a little numb. And this is kind of what drifting is a little bit. You start to numb out a little bit. You start to distract. You start to fill your days with things that don't matter so much. You go to this often. You start to kind of like slowly withdraw in terms of like your heart being centered and focused on things. So you start to kind of like withdraw, pull back, retreat a little bit. You don't feel
some more chocolate.
Totally eat that chocolate.
So speaking of
milk
emotions,
chocolate, by the way.
I was thinking about this. Speaking of emotions, I would say maybe one of the most prevalent negative emotions I have is shame. And it's because I think a solution to drift is being clear on what is really important to you. Is like crystal clarity where it's so clear to you in your deep, the deepest parts of your soul of what is so important. And then the sense that you violated those deep, important pieces of what makes you and what's important to your family and where you're going. I feel like, for me personally, it's like there's like this sense of like, dang it, man, like it's not working. Like we're not in it. We're not, we're not
flowing.
We're not flowing. It doesn't feel right. It feels like, wow, this is like crazy. We're like, what are we doing?
But what are we doing? That's always where it's like, okay, we got to start having these mission meetings more regularly. That's always the question you ask, like, what are we doing?
If you're having that thought or you're saying it out loud, that's another good indicator. You might want to stop, connect with your spouse, whoa. Because maybe he or she's having the same thoughts. And you readjust. And we were talking about this last night about making an adjustment on point. And not feeling shame or guilt about having missed it forever long. You just sit down and you reset and you start over. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I don't want to get us too far into this conversation about drift. We're going to talk about that the next time we have a conversation, because it is important and it's huge. I mean, the idea of drift is massive and it is so prevalent and so dangerous. For families and society. It's so common and easy. And we'll get into all that in the next episode that we have. But I just want to thank you guys again for joining us here.
Yippee.
We're so excited you guys tuned in with us to listen to the show.
Thanks, friends.
I'd love to just encourage anyone who's listening. We have an amazing opportunity, totally free. And if you're looking for a way to live with more connection in your family or experience a deeper connection in your family, with your spouse, with your kids, to grow in confidence as a parent, we have this thing called it's called the 5-Day Legacy Challenge. And it's 5 days. It's totally free, but it is going to rock your world. I want you to check it out. Go to 5daylegacychallenge.com, and you can sign up for it there. Again, it's totally free. But we just want to thank you so much. If you found this show encouraging or helpful in any way, I would love for you to just rate it, review it, comment, subscribe. Help us get the message of family legacy out to as many families as possible. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.